Hi everyone, I'm Professor Rad, and today we're going to talk about the variance. Now, the variance is our third measure of dispersion that we're going to discuss. The first one was the range, and then the second one was the standard deviation. The variance is going to be very similar or based on the standard deviation, so if you haven't watched that video, you want to make sure you watch that one first. So, to find the variance, I'm basically going to go through this exact same process that I would go through for my standard deviation. The only thing that's different is I just wouldn't square root. So let's go ahead and do a couple of examples of finding the variance. So the variance of a data set is the square of the standard deviation, or it's what you would get if you didn't square root in your standard deviation formula. So we're going to find the variance of the previous data set to the nearest tenth. So in the previous problem, just to kind of recap here, we had 5 temperatures. We found they had a mean of 63 degrees. And then we found the standard deviation by completing this table. We divided by 5 and then square rooted to get a standard deviation of 30.186. So for the variance, I'm going to take that 30.186 and square it. Oops, making sure this is on. So 30.186. And then remember, for squaring, we can just use this x squared button here. And it'll give me 911.194596. Now, in this case, they want it to be to the nearest tenth. So I find my decimal point. The first one afterwards is the tenths. This 9 is going to make that 1 go up to a 2. So I get 911.2. Now, for my class, I'm not requiring a label for the variance, but because we squared the standard deviation, the label will be whatever the standard deviation label is squared. So here we had degrees Fahrenheit. So this will be degrees Fahrenheit squared. And that's it. That's all you have to do. You just take your standard deviation and square it. Also notice this answer we got, 911.2, was the same as what we got in our work before the square root symbol, 911.2. So you could also, if you didn't have the standard deviation, go through this process here, getting that table, and then just dividing by however many there are, and then just don't square root. So let's go ahead and do an example of finding the variance for a sample. It's exactly the same process. So again, in the last video, we found a standard deviation here. So we found a standard deviation of $51.5 billion. So to get the variance, we're just going to square that. So I'm going to do 51.5 squared. Okay, now this calculator is giving me an answer in fraction format. I'm glad it did this. Your calculator might give it to you in decimal right away. So on this calculator that I'm using, this is the Casio FX300 ES Plus. To get this in decimal format, I'm going to use this SD. I think it stands for like specific and decimal, maybe. I'm not sure. But if I press that, it's going to change it into decimal format for me. If you're using this calculator, the TI-36X Pro, this button right above the Enter button is also going to change between fraction and decimal format. So those are the two that have a tendency to give answers in fractions first. Oh, there's also this one. This is the TI-30XS Multiview. And if this one is giving you a fraction instead of a decimal, this like left-right arrow will convert the format. So calculators be doing their own things, yo. So we get 2652 and a quarter. 2652 and a quarter. Now, this one wants us to round to the nearest whole value. Whole value means ones place. In other words, no decimals. So I go to where the decimal point is, and just to its left, that's our ones place. That's where we're going to round to. Immediately to the right is a 2, so that's smaller than 5, so this one stays a 2. And we get 2652. Now, the label here was billions of dollars. So, oh, they already gave me the label, $1 billion squared. So we can see that for variance, we get squared in the units. And that's because, again, we're like squaring the number. Now, I want to point out that this answer, 2652, that we got, is a little bit different than what we would have gotten if we took the number before the square root. So in this case, we have 2650.4, and that would have rounded to 2650. So in my classes, I accept both answers based on the work that you show. So if I show 51.5 squared, then I'm going to accept the answer 2652. If I show the work 13,252, I got that from the total, divided by 6 minus 1. That's the n minus 1 that I need for a sample standard deviation. Then I would accept the answer of 2650, because this would have given me the 2650.4. So I'm going to base the accuracy of your rounded answer off of the work that you're telling me that you do to get that answer. All right, so that's it. That's our variance. In the next video, we're going to use our calculator to figure out how to do all of this work for us, so we don't have to like fill out this table. What we're going to be able to do is just enter the data values into our calculator, press a couple buttons, and it will be able to tell us the mean and the standard deviation right away. So we don't have to do all of this work. It'll cut down on the work quite a bit. So looking forward to seeing you in that video for whichever calculator you're using. In the meantime, I hope you have a glorious day. Bye, everyone.